Welcome to the City Current Show. I'm your host, Jeremy Park. We're always honored to bring you inspiring stories of individuals and organizations making a difference and powering the good. And we get to talk about the power of a seed, planting a seed and what that means for children, not only for nutrition, but also science and their trajectory in life. We are joined by Susannah Fotopulos. She's the founder and executive director of Plant the Seed. How are you doing, Susannah?
I'm great, Jeremy. Thanks for having me.
Let's start out with a little bit of your personal backstory, because growing up on a farm, you know the power of food and being able to share it, and also working with youth. And so give us a little bit of your personal backstory leading to launching Plant the Seed.
Thank you. Yes, I grew up on 72 acres in rural Tennessee near the Alabama border, and we had a 3-acre vegetable garden. My job as a young person was to help throw out rocks. So I don't know that it was the most inspiring chore, but we had more food than we knew what to do with, literally, even though we canned and froze. So we loaded up my dad's orange Chevy pickup truck and took it to subsidized housing near where our farm was, and shared it with folks in those apartment complexes who did not look like me as a young girl. So I learned pretty early on the power of food as a connector across culture, across experiences. And I think that just kind of stuck with me. And then I became Hands-On Nashville's first ever AmeriCorps member, and started the youth service learning program there. So have always been, I joke that present company excluded, of course, I prefer the little people. Like, they're just so genuine and authentic, and they are natural gardeners and natural explorers. So when I thought about how I wanted to grow this inspiration, it was in connecting them to food in a way that I did naturally on the farm, but my kids and their peers living in urban Nashville would have a very different relationship with food. So that was the inspiration for Plant the Seed, to connect even urban youth to how their food grows, the land that grows it, and the community with one another that opportunity presents.
And I think that is the interesting confluence, is the fact that you're working with youth, it's schools, but it's also community gardens and tying those pieces and community in a larger scope. And like we mentioned at the onset, there's a science application, there's core curriculum. So, I mean, there's a lot to this. So talk about the model and how it unfolds.
Absolutely. Thank you. There is a lot to it. And a lot of folks are like, well, isn't that sweet? And I'm like, well, we're not just another pretty growing space. We do have a partnership with 5 Metro Nashville public schools currently, which is a no small feat in its own. We grow alongside 1,200 young people each week. We're integrated into their school day, and we are a part of their curriculum. We're aligned with curricular standards. Any one of our garden lessons addresses 3 to 8 academic standards in a snapshot of that lesson. So it is a powerful academic teaching tool, but the way Plant the Seed was designed, conceived, was to be a flexible resource. So we do mirror the communities where we are, and we help the schools meet their goals. So in a community setting, we had a partnership for a while under different mayoral leadership with the public libraries, in partnership with their seed lending library. And their goal there was just get these kids outside, get them off computers in their after school time. So we did gardens, they grew food, they had healthy snacks, they were outside breathing fresh air. So the flexible resource, I think, is key. When I was researching this and other programs who do things similarly, one of the recurring hurdles is always in getting kids to the garden, right? Like, you don't have transportation, you don't have funds for that, you don't have time out of school for that. So again, the privileged are the ones who got those experiences. So we wanted to go in the heart of an urban district in the under-resourced schools and say, we're right here, literally in your backyard. You can come and learn and grow alongside us. And we kind of joke internally that we work with ages as young as 3 up to 4th grade, next year 5th grade when it comes back to MNPS. But we've kind of catch kids before they decide green is gross. So there's a ton of potential for behavioral change over time with an early exposure to, their taste buds to things like sauteed kale or a fresh radish or a warm cherry tomato.
I think there's the experiential side, like you've talked about, in terms of getting their hands dirty and understanding, how to plant a seed and watching the process of growth and all these things. There's an appreciation, like you're talking about, for the time, the effort, and also too just the nutritional value and the flavor. And then there's also too the carryover effect, I think, of career development as well, because,
Mm.
you know, you do hear so much around the fact that with the urban setting, we're losing the appreciation for what it means to be a farmer, for the connection
Mm.
to to connection to nature, but we're also at a loss for farmers in the farming community. And so I think there's a lot of cool kind of subplots to this.
Mhm.
Carry some of those forward in terms of what you're seeing as some of these powerful advantages.
Well, I can share a couple of sweet anecdotes. So, we were at an early learning center one year where the students had a career day, and a young student dressed up as a garden teacher, right? Like that wasn't anything I thought could be a thing when I was little. So that was pretty amazing. We also I was working with a group of fifth graders, and this young woman came up to me and was just like, I am so confused. I really thought I wanted to be a pharmacist, but I'm loving this gardening. I'm like, what if you did pharmaceuticals with plants, herbal medicines? Research that. And you could see just the gears start churning for her. So I think the potentials are limitless. And you see, a lot of young people now are trending in that direction of it needs to be meaningful. They need to feel connected. It's not just a job. And so I feel like we are setting students up in that regard for this success. And I will tell you, one of the other sort of subplots, I like that you use that term, is that of empathy. Like, we're a culture that is struggling to practice that. And it comes in spades in the garden. Like, there are opportunities to care for another living thing, be that plant or insect or small animal. We do have chickens at one of our partner gardens, and it abounds. We had a sweet young person, a 4-year-old at our Cambridge Early Learning Center in Antioch, who was watering a young seedling. And we were reminding him, like, water the roots, not the head. We need a sprinkle, not a flood, because he was getting very zealous with it. And he overwatered the seedling, and you could see it bend and kind of break. And his face was like horrified, little tears welled up in his eyes. And he was like, I don't think I can handle this, and just handed the watering can over, right? Like, that empathy, like, he felt that for that plant. And so, of course, there was a lot of opportunity to support right there in that learning of just like, don't worry about it, buddy. We'll plant another one. But what a lesson, like, what a valuable lesson. And that young person felt that. So our students feel a connection to the plants. They feel a connection to the land. That is going to inspire undeniably down the road conservation efforts, right? Like, we have young conservationists in the making. And we have empaths in the making. You really learn something when you're emotionally connected to it. And these young people are emotionally connected to this garden. So it matters that they're having fun out there. It matters that they want to know what the chickens are doing. It mattered in those 18 months of school closure that students still got garden videos connecting them to that garden. They wanted to know what was going on with those seeds they had planted. And so, yeah, it is a powerful teaching tool, but it's teaching all kinds of things that help. We say our greatest harvest is in food aware, civically engaged young people. Like, these kids know they can make a difference from a very young age, and that's powerful. We're a culture that has somehow relegated young people to recipients of service, and they need to be. We need to care for them. They are very vulnerable. They are also capable of a great deal. And so it wasn't so long ago in our history, think victory gardens, when if young people did not participate, we didn't eat. So we don't want child labor. I'm not advocating for that, but they are learning by doing, and it is a powerful teaching tool, and they contribute a great deal. They're incredible gardeners.
What are one or two, when you look at the alignment academically and scientifically, what are one or two things that you think everyone should know in terms of the power of kind of the education side tied to either a specific lesson or something that the youth take away?
That's a great question. And, science is a gimme in the garden. We do have a great partnership with Rosebank STEAM Elementary, where their whole focus is biological science. So it's such a natural alignment out there. And I love it. The science, it abounds. But my heart and sort of the way I show up in the world is much more on the sort of language art side of the brain. And so those opportunities to write about what you're doing, the most powerful tool we share with young people is a garden journal. Every student gets a hardback, wire-bound garden journal. They learn very early, even as young as 3, as language and writing is emerging, that their observations of the world and how they record it matter. And we are looking to support them in that. So we have seen in a program evaluation we were able to do with Vanderbilt Peabody, we have seen literacy gains through our programming compared to peers who don't have Plant the Seed. So we do word cards, we do seed packets, we chart. What do you know? What do you want to know? And I think the real power in our approach is we show up as facilitators in the garden, not teachers, as mentors, as coaches, of just like, we've curated this beautiful space. Bring your curiosity, your awe and wonder, and we will come alongside you and scaffold that. We will ask you open-ended questions that say, what do you know about butterflies? Because even kids as young as 3 know something about butterflies, so then you can have the conversation of, well, what are you curious about? What do you want to know? And that's where the lesson happens, right? So we follow the curiosity and wonder of the young people, but then the science is there, the language is there, the social emotional learning is there. And we can support that academically. I mean, I don't want to say it's easy. It's not. There's a skill to it and to aligning in this way. And I think the hardest part for adults is to get out of our own way of like, we know the answer. Well, let them discover the answer, right? They're not a vessel to be filled. We're just awakening what is already there and giving them space to practice it.
Yeah, very well said. How can the community help your efforts?
Great question. Well, we are always looking for donors. I mean, it has been a really tough time to be a nonprofit that nestles itself in the world of public schools and agriculture, right? Like there's not a lot of funding there to start with. And we have certainly felt the pinch. In the school closures, we feel incredibly grateful that we were able to maintain most of our partnerships. But there was certainly a pinch when that revenue from a fee for service model with our schools was just not there. So certainly donors. And we are in a season of telling our story. Like we've had heads buckled down developing these resources. We have an amazing toolkit that we are updating and developing a teacher guide to come alongside. And there are a lot of folks who just don't know what we're doing. I mean, that's what's so great about this opportunity is to tell our story. And so then when we say we grow with 1,200 young people each week, people are like, what? So come take a tour of one of our gardens. We would love to show you these young people in action, because I do think it's a sort of like, it's hard to conceive until you see it happen. But then you have even seasoned classroom teachers go, they are so calm out here. They are so engaged in what they're doing. And the greatest complaint we hear from young people is, but I'm not done yet. But I didn't get to do this. And we're like, you'll come back next week. You'll be here next week, right? We'll bring that activity center back out again for you. So I would love to invite any of your listeners into the space. And we are certainly looking to rejuvenate our volunteer engagement program now that I'm going to keep my fingers crossed, knock on wood, do all the superstitious things to hope that COVID is, leveling out for us. But we are getting to a phase of where we can welcome guests back into the garden to come alongside the young people. The young people do meaningful work. They do the most of our garden maintenance. But there are some things like, digging a hole for a fruit tree that requires some adult-sized power. And so there are volunteer opportunities with us in the garden as well. But definitely follow us on social media and maybe sign up for our newsletter.
What sort of vision or plans do you have for the future? Because I can easily see this expanding outside of just the Middle Tennessee area, but I'm curious for you in terms of vision and goals, what are some of those looking forward?
That's a great question. We have a couple of aspirations, and yes, one does take us beyond Metro Nashville. So the way we've kind of contained it for purposes of ongoing program evaluation is to say we will stay facilitating with these partner schools. That way we can ensure program fidelity, but we are looking to perhaps sell our toolkit, and best case scenario would be accompanied with training, right? So we can say, it looks good on paper, but here's the methodology. Here's how you deliver it and get the results we get, right? So that will be a degree of fidelity that it goes beyond then the borders of our county. And then we are also looking to, our garden spaces are very much designed as education spaces. They are not production spaces. So when they taste a cherry tomato, I mean, we have very productive tomato plants some seasons. So they may get many tastes of it, but they're not going home with a whole pint or more of cherry tomatoes, right? So we have the, the gardeners who are on our team who, like, my retirement plan is I'll just handle the production for Plant the Seed. But a production space is of great interest to us where we can, when we are studying kale and doing sauteed kale and kale smoothies, then any family who wants it takes a bunch of kale home, right? Like where we bring this into the world of food security and food justice and food access in a meaningful way, because the young people don't have buying power. They have bugging power though. Like, mom, can we try this kale? I mean, so that is of great interest to us, that we can take another step in the direction. Ours is a long game. We are teaching young people, and we know that that pebble will hit the shore at some point, but we can't guarantee when. So anything we can do to shore that up, we have family engagement activities, but if we can send them home with those fresh foods as well, we feel like that will really grow that effect.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think in general, we always use the analogy, especially on our with City Current, as being a farmer, planting seeds of good fortune, treating people with respect and kindness, and just building those relationships that it might not be a short term, but long term, when you look at just the power of creating these opportunities, it creates a windfall of new fortune ahead just by planting these seeds of kindness and doing everything that you're talking about. So to me, just the planner philosophy of not just looking short term, but long term on the power of what you're doing, that's where the real magic is. Wrap up on your end with website, social media. Where do we go to learn more and connect in?
Yes, thank you. Please find us at planttheseed.org. And yes, it is an awkward two T's located there together, but it is Plant the Seed. And you can find us on Facebook at Plant the Seed. We're on Instagram at Plant the Seed TN. And we would love to have you follow us, reach out, start a conversation. We are for sure in the business of growing community alongside growing gardens. And so we feel like the virtual space is just another place where we're building relationships and having ongoing conversations. So that would be a start. And then join us in the garden. We'd love to host you at any one of our partner sites.
Awesome. Well, Susannah, greatly appreciate all you and your amazing team do. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks so much for having us.